Hey, Jocelyn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. So, what's the haps in Iowa? You are on the ground, embedded with the Bernie Sanders campaign. What's the haps?
So many haps. Okay. Whew, I haven't been on in a few days, so I'm like, so let me just tell you guys what I've been doing day by day. Friday was in Iowa City. We did a rally with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Michael Moore at the University of Iowa, and interestingly, act.tv covered a Bernie rally at the University of Iowa last March. And it's kind of crazy that the American campaign season goes on this long. Do you ever think about that, James?
Uh, I do. Way too often.
Like, how crazy is it that we have been in this same primary, not even general, primary cycle for almost a year? And it's going to go on for longer than a year. And then we're going to have 6 more months of the general election. Like, that's insane. And the
Yeah,
idea that we only do a presidential cycle every 4 years is just not true, because it's essentially like you have the presidential election and then it's over, and immediately people start preparing to announce 2 years later. That's nuts. And I mean, I think it's a real direct reflection of the amount of money we have invested in the political economy that's just toxic to actual democracy. Like, I don't know. What is it? Now I need to look this up.
well,
But what are
capitalism
your
trumps
thoughts on this,
democracy.
James? Am I just like being ornery?
Well, yes, you're being ornery, but that's one of the many enjoyable things about Jocelyn. But no, it's America. We're sure we have democracy, but it's capitalism first. So we have capitalist democracy, and election season is like an $8 billion a year industry just through TV advertising, never mind print and digital advertising. So there's no onus or impetus for the elite or the wealthy to dial it back and, let's say, adopt a system like they have in the UK, which is that you can only like campaign for whatever it is, like 2 months or 3 months before the election, and you can't run
Yes.
ads until then.
Yes. I love what you said about capitalism, because you're right. Like, James, we definitely know people who make a ton of money off of this system.
Oh, it's
And
ridiculous.
I was talking to a political consultant friend, and we work on projects together, and he was like, why, like, what all these activists, like, this is our business. I was like, what is wrong with you? Like, if this system imploded, then we would just do other kinds of work. It's not even that big of a deal. Like, it's not like these are non-transferable skills. They don't have to exist in this very creepy, toxic way. Like, if you're a political consultant, you could easily go be some other kind of consultant somewhere else. Like, sorry, my tears aren't really, it's like the same thing with the insurance argument. Like, oh, well, what will the insurance executives do if we get Medicare for all? Like, frankly, that is not something that keeps me up at night. It's really not.
Yeah, no, that's pretty low on my list of fucks to give. Is but what about the insurance executives? Yeah, very low on my list.
I just, I just, I mean, it's the people that people choose to have compassion for is fascinating to me, because it's like, okay, so working class people who are killing themselves still don't have a living wage or health care. Those people you're telling to suck it up. But like Joe, whoever who makes six figures working for Anthem, that's your concern. Got it. All right, cool. Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you don't think about the capitalists, who will?
I know, other than all the other capitalists.
I mean, the trickle down I hear is supposed to start kicking in any day now.
When does the trickle down kickle in?
Any day now.
All right, well, I'm excited. I'm
Hey,
ready for it.
if you ask me that question next week, when's the trickle down going to happen? You know what my answer is going to be?
What?
The same as it was today. Any day now. I've been waiting for the trickle down to kick in since like '86.
Nice.
Yeah.
How's it going so far? Still any day now?
Well, at this point, it's a two-horse race to see what check hits my mailbox first. If it's the trickle-down check or if it's the Soros check. I'm still waiting.
Oh, well, I await both excitedly as well.
See? Capitalism.
Well, and this is a thing. I think there's a psychological dynamic that a lot of people just don't want to face, that people with a lot of capital and wealth just have a different idea of how much money they need to live on, you know?
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot. So my best friend and I both were organizers, and then we started like the DC internship circuit like the same time when we were in our early 20s, and now we're in our late 20s. And we have a lot of conversations about how we look at money very differently than a lot of our DC like consultant friends, because for us, like, we don't make a ton of money by any stretch of the imagination, but we very much feel like, you know what? It was only a few years ago that I was working waitressing jobs and like couldn't afford food. So I feel like I'm doing pretty well, you know? And that's, I think, very common for a lot of working class people or former working class people. We're like, we don't want that much. We're not looking for like 5 houses. We literally just need enough to cover our needs, and most of us are okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, do you agree with this?
Oh, no. I mean, the bar is low. I mean, I'm in my 40s. My wife and I have been trying to save up to buy a house now for about a decade. And like, I was in New York for the last 5 years. We were spending like $33,000 a year in rent, which ergo makes it impossible to save up enough to get a 20% down payment on even a cheap ass house.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's just
that's the bar now. It's like the bar is being able to pay your rent and still go to brunch on Sunday, and you're like, yeah, I'm kicking life's ass. I'm good.
Yes, James, you get me. Like, seriously, that's where I'm at. And on one hand, I think it's nice because I think it's psychologically healthier to be satisfied with less. But then there's also a part of me that's like, wow, maybe we in America should be asking for more than to just basically not be destitute. But that's the problem. You have one class of people that are like, I have $1 billion. Now I need 5 billion. And then you have other people who are like, oh, wow, I can pay my rent this month. I feel like I'm doing really well. Those people should not be existing in the same country, especially when thousands of Americans are dying every year due to healthcare and food insecurity. That's crazy. That's literally like pre-revolutionary France shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, because we've now been conditioned, because this is going on. Now we're going on the third generation of give the wealthy tax breaks and the trickle down will happen. We're now on the third. This is the beginning of the third generation under like the post-Reagan trickle down economics. And usually what happens generationally in society is as people get accustomed to things, their accustomed attitude towards it then travels downhill through, their children and their children's children. So usually by the time you get to a third generation of a societal ideal, it just becomes like the default or the norm. So we're now getting to a point where people who actually knew about, FDR and top marginal tax rates being 91% and being able to, like, I don't know, buy a house on a single income as a family, like, that's now so many generations in the past that people coming up now, young people now, the default is like, the bar is low. The default is, hey, if I can, pay my rent and I can spend that extra $9 a month for, HBO, then hey, I'm good. And like 50 years ago, the bar was, I should be able to have a family and a house with, a job and my spouse working part-time. And like, it's not even like in the conversation because the bar has been, much like how the Overton window is shifted to the right, the bar on what's societally acceptable in America for sustainability and survivability has also like dramatically decreased.
And, it really, like, I talk about this a lot. So my dad has a really interesting job. He's a financial counselor. Ooh. And he counsels people about their money. And I feel really like middle class people, not rich people. And I feel really grateful that I grew up around that because I don't have any shame, like talking about the amount of money I make or whatever. But the reason I bring this up is because I've noticed when I talk to friends, it's actually very culturally common, especially for women, but I think for everybody, to not admit like their actual financial situation or to engage in magical thinking about it that plays right into the capitalist hands, you know? Like I had a woman reach out to me that I'm really close to, and she's like, oh, like, so I need professional advice. Should I go out for this job that's like, you know, $10 an hour instead of 7? I feel bad leaving my old job. I was like, girl, yes, you can't live, no one can live on $7 an hour. And she goes, oh, well, I have been though. And it's like, that's the world we live in now. This is a woman with a master's degree, by the way. $7 an hour.
Nailed it.
Is there anywhere in America you can live on $7 an
hour? In your car.
Yeah, literally.
So real quick,
and
hang
I love
on.
that Bernie Sanders has started talking about this because I've noticed that there are a lot of women, especially, but again, I think this transcends gender, who end up in domestically toxic situations because they don't have the financial leverage to leave. Like the woman who was talking to me is married and like, you know, her and her husband pool their resources, but like that's Bernie Sanders has been bringing that out in speeches. He's like, yeah, part of housing justice and part of financial justice is that women, but again, any gender, don't have to stay in domestically unstable or untenable situations just because they can't afford to live on their own. Like living on your own is this new luxury, and it really shouldn't be. Like that should be pretty basic.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw it out here and real quick, just into the chat, Mr. Decrypting. Yeah, I know my name comes up on here. We had to pick this up on the fly. Jocelyn is literally like phoning in on a computer, you know, on like a small laptop with like her bags packed behind her. She's like literally like checking out of an Airbnb. So we just had to throw this together. So apologies for my name coming up every time I talk and Jocelyn disappearing. Sorry about that, Jocelyn.
No, I really appreciate that you're here. Seriously.
No. Hey, I'm always happy to help. So I'm trying to talk not too much, but I still want to like reply to you and acknowledge chat. So hey, Kibbles, and yeah, no, it's horrifying. Like my wife has a PhD, and in my head I hear the words PhD and a master's. She's a PhD, a master's, and an MPH, and in my head, you know, I think mo degrees, mo money, and
yeah.
No, yes. Not so much.
And it's oh my God, like here, everything you need to know about American education and money right now, I was advised away from pursuing applying for a PhD track by my advisor. She was like, Jocelyn, I'm gonna be honest with you, like you prefer communication anyway, right? Because she was my advisor for years. She was like, if you pursue a research degree, what you're going to be doing is competing with a lot of other people who are pursuing a research degree to probably make no money for 5 years and then come out and also make no money. She's like, if you have other things you want to do, go do them. And like, I tell people that story and they're like, she's wrong. Go back, get your PhD. And I'm like, no, I think she was actually being really kind, because the way we treat our academics in this society is just, it's unconscionable. Like if your wife has that many degrees, she should be like running the country. And yet what we do to people who pursue these degrees that are so important and we so need for the fabric of our society to get better is we're like, here is a fellowship where you make barely minimum wage, but you'll get to add things to your resume. Like what? That's nuts. It's just nuts.
Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you expend 35 hours of labor and I'll give you a ham sandwich and credit.
Yes, you get credit. You get a good recommendation. And like the power dynamics that creates is crazy, because I used to I hate sycophants, right? Like I think they're weird, but I actually do kind of get why it creates a labor market of people who are always sucking up to someone, because it's like, okay, well, if you're not even getting paid, you're literally just working under the auspices of this advisor with the hope that they like you enough to recommend you to something else. Think about the power dynamic that creates. because it's not like you're getting, money that you can save up to be like, go fuck yourself if anyone bothers you. Fuck you money is so important. Like, so important. What? You know I'm right, James.
I often
it is like one of the great goods of life, being able to say.
I try to explain to people, yeah, the difference between money and fuck you money. It's like 2 zeros on the end is the difference.
That's probably true. And in this sense, I really do mean it in a very, okay, well, let me tell you guys a little bit about my situation. So a month ago, my male partner lost his damn mind. And I like literally lost his mind. And I would love to tell you all the dirty details, but like, I probably shouldn't. I'm probably saying too much. But I'm making a feminist point. Like, because I was in a situation where, like I have a job and I have my own bank account, something that women, oh my God, James, you want to hear some crazy shit? When we were engaged, I had women telling me like, you guys should have a joint bank account. Like you should combine finances. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I see no reason to do that, And that turned out to be one of the smartest things I did, because I was literally able to be like, you know what? This is a terrible situation. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And like, I have not spoken to him since. I would not have that luxury if this were someone I was financially reliant on. And it is a huge luxury. Like, that makes me tremendously privileged. And there are so many women in America who can't do that. And we wonder why women end up staying with men who treat them poorly, are emotionally abusive, physically abusive, whatever. A lot of women don't have a choice. Like, what would they do?
No, listen, I get it. And hang on, let me, so, and Sarduki, you're 1,000% right on that. So my wife and I, when we got married, so she had been married once before, which was good because she was like, oh, I don't want to deal with like the whole big wedding and 100 family members and all this other bullshit. Yeah. And I was totally good with it because, at that point I was like, I think I was like 41 when we got married. So I was like, yeah, I don't need that fucking drama. And like we talked about the last name thing for a hot minute, and I'm like, yeah, like I don't need that. She's a published scientist. So like her changing her name would have been stupid. And people are like, I like, my old Italian relatives. Like I had a couple of them who were like, what do you mean? Your wife's not going to take your name. You have a masculine name. Your wife should take your name. And I'm like, I don't give a rat's ass. Like, she has a career. I have a job. Like, if anything, I should change my name to her last name because she's like accomplished and I'm like a putz. And we talked about the bank account thing real quick. And even though like we share financial responsibilities and bills and pay, we still both have our own bank accounts, specifically for the reason that you discussed, which is that if you only have like a joint account, it instantly takes autonomy away from whoever it is who is, quote, contributing the least financially. And that's got to be like a hard, like the shift to the power dynamic there has to make everything like from that point down totally different.
Yeah, I love that you say that because that's what it is about. It's about power dynamics. Like literally not that long ago, this is actually a fascinating point. So not that long ago, I make my own money. And Billy, my ex, always really liked that about me. He was like, I love that I'm with a woman that I don't have to take care of. Like, it's really nice because he'd had to do that in the past with other relationships. But my one of my mentors called me last week and she was like, I've been watching your Facebook and I keep laughing because I'm like, this is why men didn't want women to work because you don't look sad at all. She was like, you look actually like you're having a great time. Because when women work, and again, to be clear, I think everybody should have their own finances. I don't think that's like a gender thing. When women have autonomy and that power dynamic is equal, if a situation gets bad, like that's it. That's it. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to do anything. You can just go. And this conservative image of life where like a woman, gives up her financial autonomy and gives up her uterus and like isn't allowed to have abortions. It's about power. It's about having control of women. And like, I'm not trying to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's all tied together. It's not like these conservative pundits are just like really concerned about their child's development and really want a woman around. Maybe some of them are, but I think most of them like the idea of being able to have female partners who can't just get out. Because when you have your own material autonomy, which everybody should have, and that should be the basis of our political economy. But if people who have material autonomy are not easy to control, because if you treat them badly, they can just leave. It's kind of that simple.
No, it's if you
and
look,
you know
if hold
I
on,
think
wait
that's a good thing. And I don't it really, really bothers me that capitalists have appropriated that very human truth that we should all own things to keep people enslaved. Like, do you think people pick up on that, James?
well, okay, most people with a clue do. The people who don't pick up on that are the people who have no capital, labor for other people, and then gush about how awesome capitalism is, even though they don't realize that without capital, they're just labor.
Yes.
Those are the same people who think it's dope.
Yeah. Like, these are people who, like, they'll post these memes like, yeah, hustle harder. Like, just hustle, hustle, hustle. And I'm like, you are going to hustle a long time to be Jeff Bezos, and it will still never happen. No. But that's a thing. Like, you know, there's this idea that, like, oh, leftist ideology is about, you know, I don't even know what people think it's about. Like, nobody can be rich. No, the whole point of leftist ideology is that nobody is going to be poor. Like, you can still be rich. You can still, like, you know, if you really want to start a business or work hard enough to where you have like 3 jobs, that you should be able to do that if you really want. But nobody should be in a situation where they're working their entire work week and still not able to afford things like healthcare, or again, the type of fuck you money that allows you to say, I'm going to leave this bad relationship, or I'm going to leave this bad job. That is something that everybody should be able to do at a moment's notice. I think that's like a pretty bare human good.
No, I'm 100% with you. So real quick, hang on. I'm going to cycle because we got a couple things in. Hang on. We got a couple things in chat, and then something here for you, which is okay. So yes, on the everybody should be able to have their own money and then dip. And I feel like Brad got into the back of the Zoom and fixed that and pinned you in. Thank you, Brad. So let me just go through this. Cause and effect. No equality without economic equality. Sarduki, 100%. Frazo said him and his wife, they had a joint account. And then they still both had their separate accounts. And then there was actually a good question for you, and I'm kind of curious to the answer, which was Mr. Decrypting wanted to know what your thoughts were on, especially now, on prenups, on prenuptial agreements.
Pro. But I was always pro. And this is why, like, you know, when you're like looking back on a relationship and you're like, you know, that was kind of a red flag. The one thing that I really look back on and feel very grateful to myself for is that I stuck to my guns when everybody was like, Jocelyn, you're kind of paranoid. Like, you don't need to be this much of a feminist. You're in a perfect relationship, blah, 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 blah. No, like, you just don't know. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. And it may not even be about like for something like a prenup, maybe it's not like that your spouse is a piece of shit. Maybe like someone inherits a lot of money or something. I don't know. Like, this idea of material autonomy has to be at the base of our politics and our relationships and everything, because especially with a relationship, if you love and trust someone, like James, you and your wife have been together a long time. You clearly love and trust each other. It's not like you think like they're skeletons in the closet, but there is something so powerful about being with someone because you choose to be, not because you're materially marginalized or obligated to be. And I think that's the basis of real love, choice.
Well, I mean, yeah, and if you think about it, so like if you go back, I mean, however many years, if you want to go back to when the English aristocracy made the church write in, you know, when they used to dissolve marriages, you know, because hey, I got to get a younger, more fertile wife, and so we're gonna, you know, just send this one out to pasture. And so, you know, so it evolves past, oh, well, we'll just kick her out and send her to a nunnery because, you know, because it would amplify my shame if people saw her walking around town. So even if we get past all that and you go into, like, let's say America and, like, you know, 20s, 30s, 40s, when divorce first started ticking up a little bit, not at the point where it happened in the 60s, but like the first tick up of divorce was probably a generation or two after suffrage. And pretty much what would happen is if because there was always a man divorcing his wife. It's, that's how it was back in the day. And it was literally the penniless, barefoot wife would do the walk of shame, the 3 blocks from her house to, her mom's house where she used to live as a child, and then had to live there in shame because she had no money and was penniless and this and that. And that was pretty much the default position for, stay married or be a pariah. So it's not like this shit is new. This has been an issue for as long as there's been legal marriage.
I love that you bring that up, James. Seriously, I love that you bring that up, because when I, wake up and write in my diary every morning, one of the things I feel most grateful for is to be living in this time in history where, you guys, I'm oversharing way too much about my personal life, but I have now walked away from not 1, but 2 crazy fiancés. And guess what? My life is still great, because I have my own money, I have my own friends, I have my own career. And it's awkward and it's embarrassing and it's sad and it's many other emotional dynamics. But my material status of a woman, I'm not married to Ryan Clayton right now. Okay.
See?
And James,
the bright side.
What?
That's the bright side. See, you're embracing that. See?
Can you imagine?
No,
oh my God.
Can't. I'm still gonna throw him down the staircase. So real quick, hang on. We're going to roll through here real quick. You can't have a son and keep having daughters. Let's make a new religion to fix that. Yes, welcome to Catholicism in the 1500s. Let's see. So Lord Racer, I imagine the left would be those saying free stuff blocks. No, not really. I don't know why there's this belief that the left likes free stuff. The left just does not appreciate shit-sipping capitalists putting everybody else to work so that they can have all the free stuff. There's going to be what you deem free stuff, no matter which way you slice it. The difference is who gets the free stuff. And the wealthy elitists have convinced you that they should have the free stuff in hopes that some of the free stuffiness will twinkle, 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 and will rain down upon you like a drizzle of benevolence. That's not a thing.
Darling, I love that you bring that up, because yes, the people who should be getting the stuff are the people who create the stuff. Because look, you are technically a worker, whether you make $200,000 or $7 an hour, if you do not own the means of production. That is the basis, that is the only leftist thing you really need to know. Unless you yourself own the factory, you might be making a lot of money as a manager, but you are still subject to the whims of someone else. And if that person is able to say, yeah, I'm just going to reap in everything you create and not allow you to have a dignified standard of living, your response to that should not be, yeah, I'm going to work harder and think maybe they'll change their mind. Because they won't. They don't care about you. They care about them. Why is this a revolutionary thing to say?
I was talking to Rebecca about it yesterday. And by the way, Rebecca's in chat. So, hi, Rebecca. We see you.
Hi, Rebecca.
So we were talking about this yesterday. The people who are the most pissed off about the idea of a $15 minimum wage aren't the uber elite wealthy capitalists. It's the people making $16 an hour, because it's about the perspective of place. People aren't concerned with what they have. They're worried about what they have in relationship to what other people have as a measuring stick. And that's what capitalism does.
I love that you bring this up, because I wasn't even thinking about that, James, but you're so right. And I encounter this in middle class and upper middle class people all the time. They like the idea that the fact that they make a living wage says something virtuous about them. No, you should just enjoy your material autonomy. I'm happy you have it. I wish everybody had it, But the idea that poor people just aren't working hard enough, or are dirty drug addicts and therefore don't deserve to eat, is really, really disturbing to me. And I think you're right. I think it perpetuates based on this idea of social competition. Yeah, maybe I didn't become a great athlete like I wanted, but damn it, I'm a homeowner. And at least I'm not as poor as that guy at McDonald's.
Sorry. Lord Racer, also there was a time in Europe when people there thought hot soapy water would kill them. It was called the Middle Ages. Yes.
True. Yeah, there's also a dynamic I've noticed where, like, okay, James, I'm sure you heard this as a kid too. It's literally baked into our society. People will be like, oh, like, study hard or you'll be flipping burgers. We literally view working class jobs not just as a situation of material insecurity, but as a way of shaming people. Like, we view, like, we have this American caste system, whether we admit it or not. Like, there is nothing wrong with flipping burgers. Have these people ever worked as a line cook? It is hard. It is really hard. And it takes a lot of skill.
So wait, we got a couple things here. So hold on. Frozen Harkin, hey. So hold on. Maddie C, hold on. I feel like we have some Sam Cedar-esque faux libertarianism bubbling up here.
Oh boy.
Hold on. So if you don't like the wages, don't work for them. Okay, the beauty of the free markets, you can work for somebody else who gives you a better wage for more value for your labor. Number one, I think you will find the threat of homelessness and starvation in a hyper-capitalist system to be very coercive. And if you're decision-making, if you make a decision under coercion, then it's not free will, ergo it's not a free market. Also, if you can tell me where tax cuts, government-funded bailouts, no-bid government contracts and subsidies, where all those fit into this mythical free market you're talking about, I would love to hear about that shit. Please entertain the crowd. We would love to know how $7 billion in federal subsidies that go to specific companies and specific industries is a free market. Go ahead, drop the Ron Paul shit on me. I'm dying to hear this one.
Oh my God, James, you're amazing. It's so true. Sorry, could you continue? Because
no, I don't want to continue. Please, Jocelyn, please.
Okay, so listen, I feel like I'm really equipped to talk about poverty brain because I had it not a couple years ago. I was like, my early 20s, I was working organizing jobs and internships and waitressing, and people who say, oh, if you don't like the wages, find somewhere else, don't really understand how it functions when you're so used to barely making it and barely surviving, that your brain stops conceiving of the fact that oh, there are people that make $60,000. You're like, oh wow, that's a crazy amount of money. But of course, now that I'm a professional, I'm yeah, that's not really a crazy amount of money at all. That's a normal amount of money. But when you are somebody who has just been struggling for so long to survive, and you're around other people who have been struggling so long to survive, no, one, you don't even conceive of that. And two, do you really think that people just walk into a law office and are like, hello, I would like to make a 6-figure income, please. And then the lawyer's like, well, golly, why didn't you ask earlier? That's not how this works. Oh. Professional jobs are conferred through a complex matrix of skill and privilege.
Yes.
Oh. And you shouldn't have to be highly skilled or highly privileged to live.
No. Oh, Garcon, may I have your finest $100,000 a year job, please? Chop.
I love it.
It's fucking crazy. Yo, let me tell you, when I started in TV, my first job in television, I was working for $65 a day at Dick Clark Productions for up to a 12-hour day. That was the labor contract I had when I first started. And months later, people are they're calling me up. They're like, oh my God, you're out in LA. You're working in TV. It's amazing. And I'm on my 5th day of eating white rice with ketchup packets. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm kicking life's ass over here. Let me tell you, it's a fucking party. No, and everybody's like, oh, but you should have to pay your dues and grind it out. Or, hey, wait, I got a better idea. How about we didn't have 3% of the people making 90% of the revenue, so people don't have to, when people are grinding it out, they don't have to live on rice and stolen ketchup packets. I know, crazy idea. Crazy shit.
Darling, it's so funny. You talking about that reminds me of something that I think about a lot, and I wasn't going to bring up, but I feel it's really important. So, okay. So you guys know so much about me now. So again, in my early 20s, I was really struggle bus, hard struggle bus, trying to finish school, working some of the shittiest restaurant jobs in DC. And, I have a lot of friends who and now I love act.tv, I do other consulting projects, and I have friends who will like be like, oh, Jocelyn, like, it's so, you're so like hardworking and persistent. Okay, that fucking pisses me off, because the only difference between me now and now when I was a waitress are a lot of lucky incidents that could have easily not happened. Like, easily.
Yeah.
Like, for example, connecting with the people I work with now, right? And, going from like internships where I was working just as hard but didn't make any money to things that did pay me well. We want to believe that people make these transitions through hard work because it allows us to feel comfortable with the system. And like, yes, obviously it's good to work hard. That's a good human virtue, but it's not hard work. Like, it's not, it's luck. And no one wants to say that, because I think people who are doing well don't want to say it, because then they're like, they feel like it diminishes their own life. And people who aren't doing well want to say it because they don't want to feel helpless. They don't want to feel like, oh, we're all just subject to the whims of the system. But here's the deal. We are subject to the whims of a system that doesn't favor us. And that's why having a system that does favor us is better for you, even if you are doing currently well. I mean, would you agree with that, James? Or do you think I'm being too negative?
Sorry, I was trying to make the applause loud.